live or close to live. Great to have you here. I'm back. It's been a minute. I'm excited to be back in my normal studio recording for today. And I had a question come in from Peter. And Peter asks, can you explain how to do a trigger, another trigger? Better put, the title describes this question better. I'm really butchering it. I'm sorry, Peter. Anyway, this idea is simple. So we're going to start by doing it in Codeblocks, but because Codeblocks is kind of being phased out, we're also going to do this at the end in TypeScript. And so if you're still in Codeblocks, you got that. If you've already known some TypeScript, maybe skip ahead to when you see TypeScript appear. But if you're in Codeblocks, you can do the Codeblocks and then take a stab at doing it in TypeScript, which I'd encourage you to do. Okie dokie. So let's jump into the Horizon Hub, which allows us to sketch code blocks. Now, you can sign up at horizonhub.info. This does not allow you to write code blocks. It's just for like teaching and kind of practice. And we don't really need to give this a name, but we're going to go ahead and do that anyway. And this script is going to trigger it's going to flip a trigger. Flip a trigger. Triggers state. That's a good name. A good name is very helpful. It's one of the most important things. So now that we got that set up, what we want this trigger to do is when a player enters this trigger, it's going to turn another trigger off or on. So on the variables tab, we're going to create two variables. The first one is going to be the Boolean that says is turning on. And we'll put that in create. And then we'll add another one, which is going to be the object, which is a reference to the trigger to effect. Trigger to effect. And create. And so now what we can do is go back to our events tab and grab when trigger is entered by player. And then we can say on the actions tab, set trigger detection for the trigger to effect to our Boolean variable false. And so that's it. You'd have two triggers. One is going to be set to false, and the other will be set to true. And so one will turn the trigger off, and one will turn the trigger on. The idea being that you have a secondary script, which I should be able to do pretty easy here. Script, new script, which we're going to call teleporter. And if you've been writing code blocks for a while, you should know this script. And so this script runs on a trigger, and it teleports players to a spawn point. And we'll press create. And so then we'd go to the motion tab, scroll down to move or to respawn player. Oh, right, events first. When trigger is entered by player, we then go and respawn the player, and we respawn them to the spawn point. And so the idea is that you would be turning this teleporter off and on using this secondary trigger, which you could put on a button. Pretty straightforward. Now, if you want to do this with a single trigger rather than two triggers, then we need to track the is turning on and flip it. And to flip a Boolean is pretty easy. We go to the events tab and grab set to, and we want to set is turning on to be the opposite of what it currently is. And so we'd say set is turning on to not is turning on, which is at the top of operators. So not flips a Boolean, which flipping a Boolean means if it's true, it becomes false. If it's false, it becomes true. And so when this is true, not true is false. So then it sets is turning on to false, and then vice versa. And so then we apply that effect to the trigger to effect, and every time you press the trigger, it's going to switch this state of it. Now, I'd also recommend like doing visual effects and sound effects to really make it obvious what's happening here. So you could imagine there might be, and we're just going to be real quick with this one, but a VFX particle that does like something on loop, and you would go to your actions tab and write something like if is turning on, then that we know that the trigger is activated, and in that case we want to play the visual effect. So we go down to animation. Is it play animation? Play visual effects. I'm like, it's been a while since I've done code blocks, guys. It's going on over a year now since I wrote code blocks full time. So now we'd say play visual effects is turned on the VFX particle, and then we'll go down to else and turn it off. So that's also on actions tab, and then we got stop visual effects. And so I would definitely recommend doing something like that, maybe a sound effect as well. And that's a pretty basic flip a trigger state script in Codeblocks. Now we're going to do that in TypeScript next. So we should take some screenshots of this before I move on, which I should remember how to do. Print screen, that's right. On Windows, it's print screen. I am a Mac person, Sorry for those of you who aren't, but anyway, let's go function, print, there it is. That doesn't do what oh, there it is, okay. I'm like, do I actually know what I'm doing? I don't. There we go, okay, so I got the screenshot of that so I can save that for later. We'll grab this one as well, because that might be super useful. I'm gonna post these probably in Discord. In fact, I'll do that right now. So if you haven't already, join the Vidyuu Discord. Link's in the description. You can also get there at vidyuu.com/discord, and then you can join the Discord. And then in the Discord, we'll head on over to Codeblocks, since this is Codeblocks, and we can paste those here, upload a file, and go to Documents. Is it in Documents? Where do they put pictures, screenshots? There they are. Just right to the bottom, I believe. There's our 2 screenshots. We'll do those in order, and open, and boom. All right, so if you want to see those later, you can download them there on the Vidyuu Discord and the Codeblocks general chat. Nice. And then we'll label this trigger a turn a trigger off and on. Arrow up. So if you need to search it, you can use the search bar up here to find it. Use it by searching turn a trigger off and on. Okay, cool. Done, 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 done. Next up, oh, hi. I'm going to minimize that. We're going to head into Horizon next. I've also got the chat open. Hi, Galactic. Great to have you. Thanks for joining. And we're going to create a new world. Now, I haven't actually seen this whole new world creation thing. It's kind of neat. But yeah, this is my first time on desktop editor since I left, because I've been on a Mac, and Mac doesn't have desktop editors. This is exciting for me. Now, oddly, it didn't update. I don't think. It's weird. I didn't have to install an update in MetaQuest Link, so I suspect there's some issues. I'm running a version. The current version is 2.10, updated 2 months ago. Anyway, there's no update for me to install, so we might run into some errors because of that, but the way to fix that, in case you're having it and it is causing errors in the future, is you have to uninstall Horizon, the app in the MetaQuest Link, then power off your computer, wait about 30 seconds, power it back on, then reinstall it. And that's the way that I've found that works. Cancel, minimize. Okay, so here we are in the desktop editor. They got some new AI stuff, but it's not there. See, yeah, I don't have it. It should be there if you got the latest version. And but we don't need that for today. What we need to do is create a very cool demo of that same thing we were doing in Codeblocks, but we're going to do it in TypeScript. I'm going to switch over to console. And we're just going to pull out some basic shapes so we can visualize what we're doing. And, ooh, a 10 by 10 plane, that's new. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. And we're going to move that. Let's click the F key to focus it. So you click on it and then press F to focus. Weird, I don't see it. Oh, it's a plane. So you can only see it from one way. Interesting. We're going to move that to 0. And move that to 0.1 and 0. So it's right above the center here. Nice. And we can change the scale, presumably to like 0.1 will be nice. That is actually really cool. I like that a lot. So now we got a little cube tile, which we can make into our teleporter. Looks like we can even change the tent color. That's super cool. That must be new as well. Wow. Horizon's adding great features. So fantastic. Tent strength, set that to 1, and boom! Oh my gosh, I'm so glad they added that. That is so cool. We're going to change that to 0.2, 0.2, and actually I think 0.15 is going to look best. 0.15. This is one of those art detours I get stuck in. I'm so sorry. Okay, so this is going to be our teleporting pad, and we need to visualize it as well as having this. We also want to add that visual effect I mentioned. Now there are some new visual effects in the asset library under particle effects. Where do they put that? GFX, there it is. So these are all the new ones. Oh, and look at these images. These are neat. These are neat. I'm about to sneeze. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, it's gone. And then it's here again. I don't know. I'm like sneezing. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. All right, so we got this visual effect. Let's go ahead and try this. Play that. I don't see it happening. Probably because I need to select one. Spawn in. Ooh, this is cool. Play. Oops, wrong button. Stop. I forgot the... Oh my gosh, I'm gonna sneeze again. I'm so sorry. They changed the way this worked. Let's see. Auto start simulation on preview entry. No, I don't like that, so I left it off. Play is now preview. So the way to start... it's this button here. It turns world simulation off and on. There we go. Okay, so we click on this. Make it looping. Click play. There it is. Nice. It's a little fast for me. I think you can slow it down. So here's speed. If we set that to like 0.1, maybe it needs a 0 at the beginning. There it goes. And nice. That's a lot slower. I think I like that. You can also change the color. Lots of cool properties on these new visual effects. Love it. So we've got our visual effect. We got that set to play on start. We can jump into preview mode to see it in action. And yeah, I mean, that might even want to go faster, but it's kind of nice. I'm thinking maybe double that speed. Change that to 0.2 and play world. There we go. I think that's pretty good. Definitely feels like there's a magical thing happening here. Might even go faster than that, like 0.4. Go to 0.4 and play. Yep, that's it. That's kind of cool. Okay, and that was the spawn in. I think we want the spawn out for this because it's a teleporting you out, so it should go the opposite direction, I imagine. Oh, no. Well, that's still neat. Cool. All right, so now that we got that, I want to see if I can't see where the effect is happening. Is it happening under the ground? No, just above? Looks fine. I'm trying to get it like placed right on the ground. And I'm thinking to change this down to 0.1 is going to make it look more aligned. 0.1 and preview. Oh, it's just not centered. For some reason I thought, this is it? What's going on? Is it changing position? No. I just didn't center it very well. Okay, so we're going to copy the position of this thing. Right click, copy position. That's what was throwing me off. Paste, and then slide that upward. All right, preview. That still doesn't look good. I'm thinking I need to move it down into the ground more. Preview. Still needs to go down further. And preview. There we go. That's what I was looking for. All right, so cool. Anyway, we got the idea. We got a visual effect. You can use any visual effect. Now we need triggers. So we'll go down to our gizmos. We're going to need a trigger gizmo here, which is the teleport. We're going to paste that position right onto here, get it nice and centered. We're going to slide that up just like before. We're going to change the scale on this to 0.5 and 0.5. And try that 0.5 again. There we go. So now that is nicely aligned with the actual space that the effect is happening. And then this is the trigger, this trigger that's going to be running the teleport script. So let's go ahead and get that working first and foremost. We're just going to move the player straight ahead, nothing crazy. And so there's our spawn point. We're going to make sure to turn off spawn on start. And now that we got that set up, we need to create a script. So we'll go to our scripts drop down, create new script. This is going to be called teleporter. Nice. And I like to write _entity because it's going to be attached to a trigger, which is an entity. And note that in TypeScript, we use the word entity to describe object. All right, so now that we got this teleporter entity. Also, welcome in, Peter. Great to have you. I did the code blocks already, and I posted the photos, the screenshots in Discord. I'll show those in a minute. In fact, let me see. I think it might be fast to just do it real quick. Let's see. New tab, pull it out, head over to Discord, and then when you join the Vidyuu Discord, there's a link in the description, and right here you can see those pictures. And yeah, so you can go ahead and save those to your phone, check those out. Or you can rewind the video and watch that again. But right now we're going to be doing it in TypeScript since they're kind of they don't want us to use Codeblocks anymore. So we're doing it in TypeScript to show you how to do that as well. All right, so now that we've got this trigger set up and we've created the script, we can now go and open that in the external editor. And that is VS Code. So if you've just done this for the very first time, you need to install VS Code and restart your computer for it to actually work. There we go. I do trust the authors. I like to hit allow. And here we are. And teleporter apparently isn't a real word. I have a spell checker installed. I'm just going to go spelling, add word to user settings. There we go. All right, so now that we have this, I don't like HZ dots, so I delete that. I delete all the HZ and dot here and there. And then to re-import component, you backspace the T, retype the T and click enter, and voila. Now that we've got that set up, we need a property just like in Codeblocks for variable to represent the respawn point. So here in the props definition where we put our properties, so props stands for properties, we can then click enter, and the first property is the spawn point, so we'll type spawn point, and then we do colon, and this is just a format you have to memorize. It took me like 6 months to memorize it, so I was constantly looking at old scripts I'd written to remember this formatting. So you do spawn point, colon, curly braces, type, colon, prop types, dot, entity, and then comma. And so it's just once you've written it for 6 months straight, you'll have it memorized as well. But it definitely is something where having some old scripts you've written and then referencing it when you're trying to remember this stuff is helpful. So now that we got our spawn point there, we then want to teleport a player when they enter that spawn point. And that is going to be a player enter trigger event, which we call a method since it's inside of a class. Those are called methods. So player enter trigger is received with the player parameter, player colon player, and it isn't received automatically. This is a custom name that I've given it to connect the actual player entering trigger event. We need to use pre-start, and when you type pre-start, it will autocomplete. Make sure it has this capital S, and then I don't like void, so I just delete that. It's not required to be there. Start is also technically a void, but like I said, I don't like it, so I just don't have that. Now in pre-start, we need to connect the player entering the trigger, because this script is going to run on a trigger, to this player enter trigger event. And to do that, we type connect code block event, and then parentheses, and that event is received from self, which is referenced as this dot entity. So that's considered self. So this entity is a trigger. We're going to receive the event from the trigger. And then the event name is in a drop-down called code block events. So you're going to type code, and you're going to see 2 of them. Arrow down to the one with an S, code block events, and then type period to get a drop-down list for all code block events. Then we just need to type trigger, and that's going to show us everything with the word trigger in it. We can then select on player enter trigger, and then comma, and now we want to connect that to this local method. So to do that, we type parentheses, and this is where we're going to receive the player who's entered this trigger. So we type player, and then we want to take that player, and then we draw an arrow function. So we draw an arrow, which is equals greater than, and then we do curly braces, and inside the curly braces is where we type a reference to our local method, player enter trigger, and then player enter trigger needs the parameter player, so we type another parentheses and pass the player parameter. And I like semicolons, so I add a semicolon there and there. TypeScript is an interesting language as it doesn't require semicolons, but I like them, so there they are. Now that we've got that done, if you're wondering why I like semicolons, it's because in other languages you have to use semicolons, and if you forget them, it'll cause errors, and so I just would rather be in the habit than ever get out of the habit. So anyway, now that we've got this connected, this player enter trigger is going to happen. If you want to test this at this point, you can do console.log and then player.name.get just to see that in action. I know that's going to work, so I'm just going to delete that line. And instead, we're going to just go straight to props. And props is the list of your properties. So when I click enter, that's going to type this dot props. And then this dot props dot spawn point is a reference to our spawn point gizmo. Now it might not be defined, so when I type dot as and click enter, it adds a question mark for me, which means if I forgot to reference this, let's not do anything. And then I put parentheses, and then I need to tell it what is a spawn point gizmo. And so if I type spawn point gizmo, there it is in the dropdown, click enter. And now this spawn point gizmo has a property called teleport, so I'll type dot teleport player, and then parentheses, and then pass the player I want to teleport to it, semicolon at the end because I like semicolons, press save, and that is a respawn script. A lot harder than the Codeblocks version, but not too bad. Once you've written it, you can just copy paste that into all of your worlds. So that's nice too. Okay, so now that we're done with that script, let's go and see that it works. So we've got our trigger here. We're going to go and attach the teleporter entity script. We need to reference the spawn point. Now you can just type spawn point and see a list of all spawn points, but we don't know which one it is, which is why naming in the desktop editor is so important. And so we're just going to call this one the TP spawn point. And now when I go to the trigger, I can click TP and see that appear there. Nice. All right, so now that that's set up, we'll go ahead and hit play. And running into the trigger, I get teleported right in front of it, or to wherever you wanted that to be. Sweet. Now, the next thing we need to do is create a trigger to turn that trigger off and on. Now, we're going to start with the basic example that I had shown in Codeblocks, which is just easy to understand. And so we're going to go and put a tile down here just so we can visualize where it's at. So there and there. And we're going to change the color of these. So this one's going to be off, so I'll set it to be red. And then this one is going to be on, so I'll set it to be green. There we go. Maybe make it out of, I guess that's going to be as good as it's going to get. Okay. So now we got our off and on triggers. Well, positions. Now we need to put a trigger on them. And kind of OCD there. There we go. That's a little better. And now we're going to go ahead and pull out a trigger. I actually like this trigger quite a bit, so I'm going to duplicate it and use it because I like the size. And then I'm going to need to paste it onto the same position. So I'm going to copy position of the red, paste here, slide that up till I like the position. Grabbing the green is for Y value. Then Control D to duplicate that, and then copy this position and paste here. All right. So now that we've got our two triggers set up, we need a script that will turn off this trigger. Now this script is remarkably similar to the teleporter entity script. You'll see in just a minute what I mean. We're going to go ahead and we want to see this file in the world. So what I'm going to do is click three dots, open scripts folder in Explorer. And from my scripts folder, if I go in there, I'll find that script teleporter entity, and I can just right click, copy and paste. And you can also do Control C, Control V. And then we're going to rename this, and this will be the teleporter on off script, which is also running on an entity. Remember, entity means object. We use the word entity in TypeScript because object has a different meaning in TypeScript. And so teleport on off entity. And now that we've got our script started, we need to edit it. We can now see it's already in here. If I click three dots, open an external editor, it'll open up over here. You can also open it from the sidebar over here. You can open and close that clicking there. Now, this script is named incorrectly, so I'm going to right click and click rename symbol and change this to be teleporter trigger. And in fact, I'm going to rename this trigger on off because that's really what it does. So it's a trigger on off. And now that has been updated in these three places where it was named. And here under our properties, we had reference to the spawn point, which was of type entity. We want this to instead reference not a spawn point, but a trigger gizmo. And so this is the trigger to effect. And then we're going to go Control C, Control V. And then the second parameter that we need, so Control C, Control V duplicates the line. And the second parameter we need is to know if it's on or off. So we're going to say is on. And then we're going to change this from being type entity to type Boolean. And then we can give it a default value by doing comma default, colon, and we're going to say false. So that's going to turn it off. And now we've already connected the code block event for on player enter trigger to player enter trigger down here. You'll notice that these names, I could have named it on player enter trigger. This is a custom name, so the naming doesn't matter here. But by naming it, this is the way I name it. I just don't use the word on. Anyway. It's personal preference. Make your own preferences, but feel free to copy mine if you like them. Now, in player enter trigger, we were previously teleporting the player to a spawn point, but in this case, what we want to do is take the trigger to effect, which is also a props. I'm going to delete all this and turn it off or on. And so just retyping this, it's props, click enter, dot, trigger to effect, dot as, parentheses, and then trigger gizmo. And then trigger gizmos have a property called activated. Is that it? Activated? What is that property? Let's see if I can find it in the dropdown. Dun, 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 dun. What is it called? It's definitely not simulated. Weird how I don't remember this. Get who can trigger, interaction mode, exist, enabled, that's what it's called. There we go. So we say dot enabled dot set, and then we can change that to the property is on. So we type props again, and then dot is on, and that's going to set it to whatever the property is. So now that we've got this written, and you can see how much faster this can be once you start being able to copy and paste code, and you don't have to write the defaults over and over again. It's really nice. Now that we've got this written, we can now attach it to the red script. So we're going to drop down, select teleport on off, and then the trigger to effect is this trigger, which we're going to now change to be called the TPer trigger. And so back over here, we can reference the TP or trigger. And then we can say this one is not on, so we leave it as off. And then this one is on, so we're going to need to attach the script, scroll down, check, mark that to turn it on, and then we need to reference this trigger. There's another way to reference triggers, which is from the hierarchy on the left. You can drag and drop it in here, so that's another option. Now that those are both set up, we can try this out. So if I hit play and I walk onto the red one, I've now turned it off. I need to turn on world simulation, sorry. World simulation on, hit play. I was like, where's the visual effect? So I turn this off, walk over, no teleporting, turn it on, walk over, and I get teleported. And that is the very first really basic way. We're gonna step that up just a notch. And so the first thing I wanna do is eliminate. So instead of having 2 triggers, we're just gonna have the 1 trigger. So we're gonna delete the right side one. We're gonna move this into place, selecting both by holding Shift on my keyboard while clicking. Now that those are there, we also have this bottom one, which it would be really nice if we changed the color of it, so that way we could see it as red when it's off and green when it's on to kind of help us visualize. And so we're gonna go back into our script here. And then on the script, we're gonna need references to the visual effect and the colored thing. So we're gonna duplicate this line here, Control-C, Control-V, Control-V. And so we need the visual effect, which I'll just call VFX. And we need the we'll call it tentable, and then down here we can adjust those. And so let's start with the VFX. Oh, and we also need to make it so only one is used. And so you might remember in the code blocks portion of this video, we talked about how you can flip a Boolean. You can flip a Boolean in TypeScript as well. And here we were using this property. I don't like to use properties like variables, so instead I'm going to create a property inside of this class, which is going to be called isOn. And isOn is going to equal false. And then on start, we can set isOn to be equal to the property for isOn. That's an optional line. You really don't need to do that. In fact, we can actually just delete this line of code. We don't need that anymore. There we go. Okay, that's better. So now we've got isOn set to default false. And now when the player is entered by the trigger, we need to change its state. So we're going to say isOn equals, and then exclamation point is the not operator. And then we type isOn again. And that's going to set it to be the opposite of what it currently is. So it says, okay, set isOn to be, it's currently false. So we say not false is true. So that sets it to true. We're then going to say this.props.trigger-to-effect enabled is going to be set not to the property isOn, but to the local value isOn, which is this dot isOn. So you'll see this dot isOn here, and now here. And so that's going to allow this, now that it's set to true, to be true. And then when it goes through again, when the trigger is entered by another player, it's going to be set to false again, because true, not true is false, so it sets it to false. And then when it goes to change the trigger's enabled status, it sets it to false, which is off. Then down here we can write an if statement, so if parentheses and then isOn. And now inside of this if statement we can do things to the visual effect and to the tentable. So for isOn, we're going to say props.vfx.as parentheses particle gizmo. And you're starting to see a lot of like patterns here, I hope. And these patterns are kind of like, they'll help you understand the rest of the gizmos and how to engage with them, especially if you're coming from a code blocks background. And so now this particle gizmo is going to have a property for, what is it? Play, that's right. So there's play and there must be stop, right? Yeah, stop. And so we're just going to run stop, and that's going to turn it off. And oh, actually this is going to be turning it on, right? Because we're in the isOn. So we're going to write else down here and then curly braces, and we'll move the stop down to here, and then we'll change this to be start. Ooh, I thought it was start. Start. Play. It was play. Sorry, I'm like, what is that thing called again? All right, and then we want to change the color of the tentable, and we can do that by typing tentable props.tentable.as parentheses, and this is a mesh entity, and then mesh entities have a property for their what is it called? Sorry, it's been a while. Style. Style is the property that mesh entity has. And this style property has options for brightness, tint color, and tint strength. Now we can just change the tint color to dot set to parentheses color dot red. This is supposed to be on. We'll reverse that in a second. Control C, Control V. We'll change this top one to green, and then we'll move the red one down into the else. Using Alt arrow down moves it. So clicking Alt while holding on a line, and then arrow key to move it up or down. Control save. And now we have, if it's on, we play the gizmo and we change the color to green. Now this will only work if on the gizmo you've set the tint strength to 1 already. It defaults at 0, and as you can see, when it's default 0, it's just white, so it has no effect. But at 1, it's going to fully affect it. Now you could change that to somewhere in between, like a 0.5, and that's going to make it half affected, but we're going to go with a full 1. And we're about ready to try this. I'm going to go ahead and read the chat there. I see messages coming in. Hey Sushi, great to have you. Glad to have you. Hey Trixie, great to have you as well. New Nerd, great to have you guys. Thanks for welcoming me back. I'm so happy to be back. Where's that camera? Where'd that camera feed out? Oh, it's black. Ah, there I am. Hi. Great to be back. Ayo, Geeky Zone, great to have you. Arlos, is that easier than Codeblocks? No, it's not easier than Codeblocks. It is definitely harder, but Codeblocks are not really being formally supported anymore. So it is going to be, you got to start learning it. At the very beginning of this video, I did show it in Codeblocks, so you can go watch the first 3 or 4 minutes of this video to see it in Codeblocks. And then what I recommend doing is when you're ready to start diving into TypeScript, you do need a PC, so sorry about that. But when you're ready to dive into TypeScript, this will show you, you started with the Codeblocks, and now you're going to see it in TypeScript. You can kind of start putting the 2 pieces together. Thank you, Kick, for joining. And let's go ahead and minimize that, and let's try it out. So we have the trigger. We need to reference the other things. So the visual effect we have here as the prototype particle effects. We'll just drag and reference. We should rename these, but for now it's okay. And then we got the primitives plane. We're just going to reference that just so we can see it in action. All right, go ahead and hit play. And we walk onto this. I forgot to start the world simulation. I did realize there was one bug, but we'll address that in a second. Okay, so hit play, and we walk over this. It turns green. You can see the particle effect is playing. We walk off. We walk on it. It turns red. No more particle effect going on. Back on, and teleport. Run back around. Turn it off, and ta-da! Now, that does work after the first time, but it doesn't work it works after the first time, but not before the first time. And so this trigger, because it starts as off, we would need to turn it from enabled to disabled and take the visual effects and turn it to play on start off. You could just change this to be green. That's an option. But now that works. So this is disabled by default. And then when you walk into it, it changes to green and teleport. Nice. Cool. Yeah, there we go. So that's the script. Let's check if you understand coding, then it is. Ah, that's true. That's true. Yes, memory definitely. Like flashcards definitely can help. Everything is like learning another. It can be like learning another language for sure. All right, guys, so that is the scripts. Now I'm going to give these scripts away. If you didn't know, we have an assets library that you can access. Give me 1 second to pull it up. It's in the description. If I type Vidyuu, I should see assets. Oh, no, it's not there. Let's try drive. Vidyuu Assets, there it is. All right, so here's the Vidyuu Assets, and this video is going to be part of the Office Hours series. Is it? I don't know. We might change the thumbnail at some point. So let's back out. Let's create a new folder. And today's date is 2025. So we'll go to new folder 2025 and we're in the 4th month, 04. Today is the 16th day. And this topic is triggering a trigger. Yeah, that sounds good. And we'll go ahead and click create. And then we're going to go into this folder and we're going to create a new folder inside of here called Codeblocks. And so I've already uploaded those pictures to the Vidyuu Discord if you want to check that out. But I'm also going to upload them here, which will probably be easier to find actually. So I'll scroll down. There's those 2 photos. Those are going to take like no time at all to upload. Maybe. There they go. And then we're going to go back 1 folder to triggering a trigger. We're going to create a TypeScript folder, new folder, TypeScript, and create. There we go. and new file upload. Now I'm going to drag and drop. That's going to be the easiest. So there's a few ways to open up the folder. I showed you one earlier, scripts drop down, 3 dots, open scripts folder in Explorer. The other way we can do that, I'm going to close out of Horizon now that we're done. Although if you have more questions, feel free to ask and I can show that real quick. But from here inside of VS Code on the left side Explorer, right click and then click Reveal in File Explorer. That's another way to open up the scripts real easily. And so we're just going to quickly drag and drop that in. Here we go. We got 2 scripts, dragging, dropping. Feel free to download them, use them in your worlds. You can modify them if you'd like or play around with it, see if you can learn anything from that. Next up, we're going to pull out that camera again and see if you have any more questions before we wrap for the video for the day. Whew. And I'm going to drink a little water. Awesome, you guys. Well, thank you so much to Galactic, Arlos, sorry, Geeky Zone, Trixie, Peter. Great to have you guys all. Sushi. Oh my goodness, it's been fun hanging out with y'all again. I am working on a special project, so I'm not doing a ton of Horizon stuff at this very moment. But I saw this question come in through Peter, and I was like, I got to do this one. This is a good question. I felt like we could do it in Codeblocks and Typescript really easily, and it could help a lot of you guys who are having to, I mean, we're being literally forced in some ways from Codeblocks to TypeScript, so I felt like this could really help in that transition. So I'll tell you more about the project, hopefully in a month, about 3 to 4 weeks. I'm hoping to launch the first version of this project I'm working on. It's an app in Unity. I think I'm comfortable saying this because I've made enough progress that I'm building an app to help you 3D model in VR collaboratively. So like social 3D modeling. It won't be nearly as tool rich as as the other 3D modeling tools, but I think it'll be fun. And that I feel like is the thing that's been missing from 3D modeling. And I'm looking for a creative outlet myself. Not having Horizon VR to 3D model. And like, I mean, you guys think of me as a coder, but I loved creating and 3D modeling in Horizon VR, and I haven't done it in so long. So I'm looking for a creative outlet, building a creative outlet. Can't wait to share that with you. It might not be done in a month. Like I might hit some roadblocks. It happens. So, but I'm trying to get it done before I'm busy on another thing. And then if I don't get it done, I'll have time after I get back to work on it. So anyway, more on that later. I'm excited. It's pretty cool. I'll show you one picture I have on my phone. Because I think this picture really illustrates to me like progress. That was 2 weeks. 2 weeks of work. It's a pink cube. It's a magenta cube. I know. So cool. But it was the very first 3D model that I generated with the app. And it was written in TypeScript. So that's one of the big things. The reason it took 2 weeks to get to that stage is because I'm making it moddable. Like you'll be able to completely mod this thing to do whatever you want. So theoretically, like it could drop, but then like I could write a mod for it that you can install into the app that does something completely crazy, or anyone could write a mod. So that's a big thing that I wish Horizon had, which is why I'm making it happen in the app I'm building. So anywho, talk to you in a little bit. I see another message coming in from Peter. Lots more questions. I've seen your questions coming in, Peter, and I haven't had a chance to even like think about them. Like I said, I'm so busy. But the Vidyuu Discord is a great place to ask those questions, and I really appreciate if you're watching this and you've been helping answer those questions. I really appreciate you. Like null value point shards, quite a few others that I wish I could remember the names of right off the top of my head, but Gosroth. Seriously, you all who've been answering those questions in Discord, so appreciate you. And Peter, I'd encourage you to join us in Discord. It's a great place to ask those questions and get help. So, all right, guys, I will catch you in the next one. See you in Horizon, and toodles, bye!